tonight's Web3 Basics lesson 3 of our boot camp that we kicked off on July 28th. If you have found this video and you're like, oh, I didn't start on the 28th, it's okay. All of the lessons are recorded. They are inside the education hub that we are in the process of building out. So go ahead and sign up and you can get started at any point. So today, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to talk something really important, and it's about how to stay safe online and the most mistakes that beginners make when they start out into crypto. So let's jump right into it. But before we jump into the lesson, as always, if you missed last week's session, if you found this Zoom link somewhere, somehow, and you haven't actually signed up to the Education Hub, go ahead, get signed up. All of the recordings are shared in there, resources. You can connect with other community members. You can ask the coaches, such as myself or Renee, questions. So super important if you haven't already signed up that you do so. Most of you have been here for the last couple of weeks, so I'm not going to bang on too much about it. But for those of you that are watching the very first recording, if you're new to crypto and Web3, it's going to be information overload. I think it was even Nick said in his post, he's like, oh, his brain hurts. Get used to it. It's never ending, but it's exciting because you're learning something new, you're upskilling yourself, but just be prepared. It's totally normal when you're trying to learn about this new language. It's definitely information overload. We like you to be interactive, so please ask questions, shares, comment. Majority of you are already doing that inside of the Education Hub, so we really appreciate you getting involved. And as always, be careful of scammers. We're actually going to talk about that today. That is the point of tonight's conversation. But just in general, and not just in crypto, everywhere there's scammers. Even my mom is trying to on Facebook Market back in Canada. She's looking for a puppy, and she said it's just full of scammers. She told me she doesn't want to do online dating because it's full of scammers. So it's not just in crypto, it is everywhere online. And as we become more and more of a digital economy, it's really important that you understand how to protect yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So as always, disclaimer, everything that we provide for you is education purposes only. It's not financial advice. Always do your own research. We will make recommendations of the platforms that we use and the projects that we invest in ourselves, but that is just us sharing with you what we do. You got to go and do your own research and make sure that it's right for you. And as always, this information is recorded. So let's talk about events. We're just going to talk about moving forward. Last week, I talked about all of the events that we have coming up for the rest of the year. Each week, I'll just tell you about some of the most upcoming events. So we actually have one on Thursday with all things blockchain. And they're talking about, for those of you that are doing the Crypto Basics trading course and you're really wanting to learn more about trading cryptocurrencies, this could be a really good one for you. This is with Wallet V. Wallet V is actually a Web3 wallet. We're going to talk about more about Web3 wallets next week, and you're going to get in there and you're going to learn how to create one, how to stay safe. But yes, if you're interested in learning about some more strategies, you can go ahead and attend that one. We post all of our events, so all things blockchain and EvolvH3R. We both have individual kind of Luma calendars. So if you haven't subscribed already, if you subscribe to that, you should get announcements and you should be able to see all of the upcoming events that we have. All right, so first week we talked about what is money. Last week we talked about what is cryptocurrency and blockchain. Today we're going to talk about how to keep you safe. Next week we will talk about, buying crypto wallets. How do you keep it safe? And then we'll kind of go into more of the deeper layers of blockchain, NFTs, metaverse, DeepIn, DAOs. And I'm working on bringing in some guest speakers so that you're not just going to be hearing from me. And then we'll finish it up with talking about dollar cost averaging and next steps on your Web3 journey. So that's a little bit of a roadmap of where we have started and where we're coming to. Many of you are already being super interactive, and I absolutely love it. And I appreciate all of the feedback. I the team, we're underway now. We've set up our system, but please keep giving us feedback because we are, this platform, as I mentioned to you all, is new for us, and we're learning about all the different limitations and functionality that we have with the gamification, and we will be implementing new things as we go along. But for right now, you can do your quizzes and you can interact on the platform and you can get points to win. I actually forgot to put the slide in here. We have some amazing prizes. If you've been here for the last couple of weeks, top prize, I believe, is 100 USDT, Bitcoin, VIP merch box from Bybit that will be shipped right to your house, alongside some tickets to Australian Crypto Convention and other goodies. So that's it for the weekly announcements. Let's jump into it and let's talk about how are you going to stay safe online and avoid, if you're new to the industry, how are you going to avoid the common mistakes that beginners make? And I fell for most of them. So if I fell for them, most likely you may also fall for them. So let's talk about them. Number one is they invest more than they can afford to lose. You hear of all of these stories all the time that somebody mortgaged their house and they bought some sort of altcoin and then, they committed suicide. And you hear this story quite often, and it's really, really sad and you sympathize. But at the same time, we hammer home, never afford more than you can invest to lose. I don't care if you're going down to the pump to play the pokies or if you're investing in crypto, only ever put in money that you can afford to lose. So what I personally did is I started cutting. I'm like, oh, instead of going out for dinner or instead of buying that, that new dress or whatever that I wanted when I got started, I would take that money and I would invest it into cryptocurrency. And it's just really, really important because people often hear about these people, you know, um, Jesse, I'll come back to your session in just a moment. People often hear about these amazing returns that people make, and there are opportunities to make really good returns on your investment, but they often then go all in, like they're all hyped up, and then they end up losing all of their money because some of the scams that we're going to talk about in a moment. So I recommend dollar cost averaging. Just out of curiosity, without me explaining it, when I say dollar cost averaging, who understands what I'm saying? And it's okay if you don't. I just want to kind of get a gauge of the room. Okay, so most of you, yes. Okay. So it just means we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the last lesson and like what are your next steps for investing. But it just means taking a certain amount. If you can afford $100 a week, then you put in $100. If it's $25, it's 25. And there's lots of different platforms, and we'll go into that more in a future lesson, that actually offer this built in. Some of them you have to do it manually. Some of them have it where you can actually set it up, and we'll talk about that. But I always recommend people start off with dollar cost averaging. Start off with just small amounts. Take the time to learn. Yes, we've got the Crypto Basics Trading course, and Renee is going to teach you, the different things that you can do to be safe and learn how to trade crypto. But please use that demo account that we've talked about, because most of the time people have fear of missing out. FOMO. It's a big term that you'll hear in the crypto space. And they have FOMO and they jump in. I have been there many of times. I am holding so many bags of altcoins. And if you don't know what that means, make sure you go and download that Popular Terms to Know. And a bag is just saying basically, some cryptocurrency that you bought and that you never sold. And then they call it you're left holding the bag, as in basically it's done, you've lost your money. So it's really, really, really important that if you're going to play in this space, and it doesn't matter if it's crypto, it doesn't matter if it's tech stocks, it doesn't matter if it's the pokies, only ever go in there with the amount of money that you can afford to lose. And take the time to research. Okay? Don't just jump in because somebody told you to. So falling for scams, there's different scams that happen. This is a scam that was quite popular back in the day. And I like to show this because it always blows my mind that people fall for these scams. And so basically, this was a trending scam at one point. I think now they're all AI scams and deepfakes. We're going to talk about that in a moment, where they would fish or pretend to be famous people, such as Jeff Bezos, Joe Biden, or Obama. And they would say to people, you send me 1 Bitcoin and I'll send you 2 back. How people actually fell for this scam blows my mind, but it is. So if it's ever too good to be true, most of the time it is. So think twice, okay, before you go and interact with these so-called, promotions. Um, Often they'll ask you to lock up your investment for a certain amount of time to get your guaranteed returns. Um, that also is something that you need. Never ever, we're going to talk about not your keys, not your crypto in a moment, but really, if the returns are too good to be true, you've got to be careful. And we're going to talk about that as we unpack. How do you trust the platform? Are they going to be there? If you've got to lock it up for 3 years, is that platform going to be there 3 years from now? So I basically, anytime somebody says to me guaranteed returns, I automatically classify it as a scam. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is, but they go into high alert for me, okay? And then I really need to go and do my research to understand, why are they saying guaranteed returns? So these are some of the platforms. Did anybody has anyone ever heard of BitConnect or USI Tech? Just out of curiosity? Thing in the chat. No. BitConnect, yes. No. Okay, so back in that's actually how I got involved. USI Tech was probably one of the first ones. So I'm a victim. I have fallen for scams, okay? I'm not perfect. This is why I want to share my knowledge with you. So when I got into the crypto space, I was looking to make money. I wanted to get crypto rich. And somebody had recommended me to this USI Tech. And I just thought it was weird that they were guaranteeing these returns. And I only invested, I think it was like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. Now, I was lucky enough that I actually managed to get my original investment out, but all of the returns that they told me I was going to make, I lost. So with these types of scams like BitConnect and USI Tech, it's like almost like a multi-level marketing, and they tell you to invest money and you've got to lock it up and you're going to get an X amount of return. And then they'll start paying people out. So people think that it's real. And then they go and tell their family and their friends. So the people that all of the people that got into BitConnect and USI Tech in the very beginning, yes, they made lots of money, but that's because they made the money off of the people like those pyramid schemes that you talk about. So just really, really important. All I want to say is if anyone's offering you guaranteed returns, definitely put red flag and go and do your homework and do your research, okay? There's scammers in everywhere, and I just really want you guys to be safe. So this is a really good example. So this actually was landed in my inbox. Oh, I don't think it has the date on there, but it wasn't too long ago. It was a few weeks ago. Does anybody, when you look at that and you see support at Kraken, does that look legit? Like if you got that email, would you think that that was a legitimate email? At first I was like, wow, like look how good this email looks. However, I know that I actually don't have a Kraken account, because even though I love Kraken and they're one of our sponsors, you only need so many, crypto exchange accounts. So I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. I'm actually friends with Lisa, who is the head of compliance for Kraken. And I DM'd her and I was like, wow, look at this. And then they were telling me, I can't remember how they do it, but they basically, there's some sort of way that they can fish and pretend to be this Kraken. But if you go and look at the code and behind it, it's actually a different email. So what I want to say to you here is they often get their hands on these databases. They'll never ask you for your key phrases. They'll generally not ask you to, click links. They'll ask you to log into your account. So please, if you ever get an email, like even if you're unsure, just go and log into your account and go and contact support inside of the platform. Never click on any links in an email that has been sent to you, because majority of the time, even when it looks this real, it's probably a scam. Oh, I went the wrong way. Social engineering. Has anybody heard of social engineering and what that is? Actually, this might be a very good time for me to ask my poll question. Has anyone ever been scammed before? Oh, we got yeses, nos. All right. We've got more people. Oh, we got 50-50. All right. So in crypto, that there's a saying that, have you been rugged? And a majority of people say, like, everybody's in crypto's been rugged at one point or another. You're probably, if you're in there dabbling and playing in crypto, you're probably going to end up being scammed. But as I said, scams happen all the time. I personally was social engineered a few years ago through my Facebook. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can keep safe on your Facebook, but it's basically where they go in, they either trick individuals to providing them information, or they go and research you and so much that they find ways to gain access to your accounts. So it's really, really important. There's lots of different safety things that you can do. For example, I don't use, for example, I don't use my legal last name on social media. This is a safety mechanism. I don't use my real birthday, actually. So if we're friends on Facebook and you send me a message, it's probably not my real birthday. There's little types of things that you can do to try to protect yourself online to help that if they do social engineer you and they do get access to that information, it actually probably won't match if they try to contact your banks or any of the cryptocurrency exchanges, because they won't actually have the real information. So it's very, very important, if you're active on social media, that you make sure that you're protecting yourself and taking certain precautions. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the newest ones are these deep fakes and these advanced scams. Has anybody been hearing about these deep fakes and how they can clone? I think all they need is like 30 seconds of your voice, and then they can pretend to be you and ring people up. So there's all these scams that are happening now where they're taking a recording and they're making a phone call and saying, oh, I'm in trouble, or I'm in jail, or I need this, and getting family members to send them money because they think it's actually their loved one on the other end. Also deep fake images. So we're not going to talk about this tonight, but I definitely see a role of blockchain and digital identity to being able to kind of help protect and remove this. How do we know if it's someone and not just somebody faking to be them? And I'm sure you've all seen all of these like celebrity videos or scam videos, and if you haven't, you might come across them. I notice it from a mile away. I'm like, there's no way Vitalik Buterin is sitting there saying this and is going to, but I've been in the industry a while. For somebody new, might actually think that it's Vitalik and that he's offering to send them an Ethereum for Ethereum's birthday. Like, I could almost guarantee you, if we went and looked on the internet and looked for scams from Ethereum's birthday, what just happened a couple of weeks ago, there would have been probably some scams out there of people pretending to be Vitalik giving away some Ethereum. So it's really, really important. I know I'm hammering it home, but cryptocurrency and Web3, there's a lot of opportunity in it, but there's also, when there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of scammers out there. So please just take precaution to take care of yourself. Now, pump and dump schemes. If you haven't heard of pump and dumps, I actually watched gosh, I wish I could remember the name of it. I'll see if I can go and find it. It was a documentary about these pump and dumps, but basically they're developers or different people where they pump up a token, they throw a whole bunch of liquidity, whole bunch of hype goes around it, everybody invests their monies, and then it's usually the developers are the ones that have created this so-called token, and then they just, cash out and then leave everybody holding their bags. So be very, very careful with any type of projects that have a lot of hype around them. Fake ICOs and token sales. So we talked about what ICOs were last week. So a lot of the times people will just pretend that they're launching a project. People will go along, invest in it, and then your money just vanishes. So this is why it's very, very important to do your research. Cloud mining contracts. This is a huge one. I have a lot of people that come to me, and there was actually one in the Gold Coast. I can't remember their name, but somebody had reached out to me and they said, "Oh, hey, we're thinking of investing in this crypto mining company." And I spent about a half an hour with them, and I said it would be my best opinion is no. If just take your money and buy Bitcoin and have your own keys, okay? Anytime that you're going to give somebody money to mine for you, you're basically giving them money and hoping that they're not going to run away. And a lot of the times they do. I'm not saying that they all do, but if you're going to mine, I recommend that you invest the time to do your own hardware or learn how to mine yourself and not pay somebody else to mine and then give you the returns. So honeypot smart contracts. We haven't dived into smart contracts too much yet in the DeFi space. We're going to talk about DeFi and smart contracts a little bit further on in the course. But basically, there'll be these pots of funds, and this is where bridges, there was a lot of scams with bridges. Once again, we're not going to unpack that, but it's where all of the money kind of gets put into this smart contract, and it could be malicious code, it could be a backdoor, but somehow they able to kind of take all of the money out of the smart contracts. So these are the types of things that you need to understand before you go and start investing in money and locking money up in smart contracts and putting money in and investing in different minings. You really need to understand the risks. Malicious wallet and browser extensions. So and we'll talk more about this next week when we talk about Web3 wallets and how do you interact with them. But people often will connect their wallet. They don't know what they're connecting to. They'll sign a transaction and it will be a scammer. This happened to me actually it wasn't a wallet or browser extension. Well, actually it was. I was at Toronto, Consensus Toronto, and there was this event that I wanted to get into. And I was on the wait list. And it's not uncommon for some of the events to have some sort of incentive to be able to get a ticket, right? So they'll be like, oh, buy the NFT and then you can get in. And so I got this email one of the girls, actually, it was actually somebody from Consensus, had sent me the invite, and I had signed up on Eventbrite, which I thought was weird because most of the events are on Luma. But I thought, oh, well, maybe this is like some sort of VIP. So even she was sharing a fake link. And because I trusted her, I thought that the link was safe. Nonetheless, I'm out, I'm busy, I'm doing a million and one things. It was like, click this NFT. And then I was lucky that my phone or whatever, it wouldn't connect. But basically, it was trying, and I also don't keep a lot of money in my, I call it hot wallet, which is my MetaMask wallet, which we'll talk about more next week. So even if the hackers, if I did sign a transaction and they drained my wallet, I'd only have $100 in it. But basically, even I fell victim to it because I wasn't paying attention. I clicked the link, I was connecting it to my wallet, and they were basically sending it to a contract where they were just going to drain your wallet. Airdrops and giving giveaway phishing. So has anybody gone into or have a MetaMask wallet and then like logged in and then they see like a whole bunch of tokens that they've never heard of that are in their wallet? If you haven't yet, okay, Aaron's saying yes. So a lot of the times it will be common where these scammers will airdrop people thinking that they've gotten free tokens, that they're hoping to buy more tokens, or they'll put them in wallets of people that you know are celebrities. I think at one point there was a story about like Vitalik was you know, buying XYZ token, but he wasn't. It was just that they had just airdropped tokens into his wallet, and then people started going and buying that token because they thought Vitalik was buying the token. So you've got to be very careful. Airdrops, once again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later if you don't know what they are, but essentially legitimate projects, okay? If you interact with them, it's a way of rewarding their early supporters, their early investors, the people that are interacting, and they'll take a snapshot usually at some point, and then they'll give their community some tokens essentially as a reward for being you know, a part of that community. But there's lots of scams out there as well that you need to be careful of. And the good old-fashioned rug pull, okay? So pump and dumps could be a rug pull. NFP rug pulls, kind of same, but if anybody got in the early, well, I think it was actually 2019, 2020, or was it 2021? Sorry. Gosh, all the years are starting to blend together, where NFTs got really crazy. And then there would be these people that would issue these NFT collections, and people would go and invest in them. And then they basically would just do a rug pull, and then the floor price would crash, and then everybody would be holding kind of this worthless piece of art. And in my opinion, this phase of the cryptocurrency, or we want to say Web3 kind of history, really tainted a bad light that everybody thought NFTs were just expensive pieces of art or rug pulls. Really, when NFTs have a lot of value to them, and we're going to talk about that more in week 5 when we break down and understand the differences between the different blockchains and understand the different protocols and like what are NFTs and what are soul-bound tokens and what's the differences between them. But today, I just really want you to know that there's tons of different scams out there. So please, please, please be careful. So what are some tips that you can protect yourself? Always double check the URL from the email is correct. Now, even as we showed earlier, it looked like a very legitimate email. Myself, if I'm ever unsure, I would just log into the platform myself and I would contact them directly. Always do your research before sending or investing money, any money or crypto. When in doubt, just ask someone. The amount of times I've had people reach out to me asking me, oh, hey, I'm looking to invest in this or whatever. Should I? Most of the time, people are willing to help. Avoid any projects that provide, or promise these unrealistic passive incomes or guaranteed kind of returns. And remember, no one's ever going to give free money to a stranger, like it's very, very, very rare, unless somebody's, handing out on the street to somebody less fortunate. But in terms of the crypto, no one's going to say, give me 1 Bitcoin and I'll give you 2. And don't fall for these time pressure offers. You've won this, click here. And these are all tactics to try to get you to FOMO into something. If I were to open up one of my original emails that I signed up with Ledger and all these things, I get scam emails every single day. I'm just smart enough not to click on them. All right, that's enough. I think I've hammered it home that there's scams out there and that you've got to be careful and you've got to do your research. Now, the number 3 is not backing up your wallet. So out of curiosity here, who has a Web3 wallet? Got some no's, yeses, not sure. All right, well, we're going to talk more about that next week. You're actually the practical activity next week, if you don't have a Web3 wallet, is to create one. There's many of them, okay, that you can use. I personally have MetaMask, which is one of the old school ones, and Trust Wallet are probably the two that I have at the moment. But not backing it up. And what does that mean? Okay, that means that they don't store their private keys. Now, we touched on private keys a little bit last week, I believe, and we will dive into it a little bit more in, I think it's week 5 in the coming weeks. But your private keys are basically not your keys, not your crypto. If you don't own your private keys or you do not have your private keys, then you actually don't own your crypto. And we'll talk about that a little bit with the exchanges and the differences between centralized and digital, centralized and decentralized exchanges next week. But it's really important. I actually had, so I just told you you're not in complete control. Number 1, a legitimate true story. 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine messaged me and goes, the app that I was using for my wallet is like discontinued. It's not there. And I said to him, I was like, do you have your private keys? And he said to me, I don't know. And I'm like, and he had like $1 million. Like he was so freaked out. That's why he was messaging me. And I was like, you can't tell me you had $1 million worth of assets and you haven't backed up your private keys. Then he sends me a screenshot of his private keys in his notes. Okay, if you don't understand how bad that is, please, first of all, never send a screenshot of any one of your private keys because luckily he trusts me. Second of all, never put them in your notes because your notes is what? Online. So if somebody can get into your phone or they can get into your notes and they can get your private keys. I was absolutely mind boggled. Now he was lucky. He was able to log into another Web3 wallet. Now we'll talk about this later. And he was able to recover his funds. But if he did not have his private keys, he would have lost over $1 million. So please don't let that be you. Back up your private keys. So leaving large sums on exchanges. So As I said, not your keys, not your crypto. Now, a lot of people don't understand what that means. And that means that if, as I said to you previously, your private keys, if you have them, then you own your crypto. Now, when you have money on an exchange, you don't have private keys. There's nothing for you to manage. Now, there's pros and cons to managing your private keys and then leaving it on exchange. And we'll talk about that next week. But it's just really important for you to know whoever owns the private key is actually the true owner of that cryptocurrency. Okay, because your cryptocurrency doesn't live in your wallet. And I think we unpacked that. I can't remember the lessons all kind of mixed together. They live on the blockchain. And your key, your private key, is basically the way that you access your cryptocurrency that lives on the blockchain. The wallet or the exchange that you're using is just the interface for you to be able to interact with the blockchain. Now, a lot of people will use, cryptocurrency exchanges because they can manage the private keys and that you trust them because it is a lot. Now we have wallets like Trust Wallet. Now, Trust Wallet is a multi-chain wallet, so you can have multiple different chains and you only have to manage one private key. Same as like your ledger or say your treasure. Compared to if you the safest way, and I actually know someone, his name's Curtis. The safest absolute way is to have different Web3 wallets for each individual chain. So you would have a native wallet for Bitcoin, you'd have a native wallet for Ethereum, you'd have a native wallet for Solana. But then if you end up having 5 different chains, that's 5 different sets of private keys to manage, it becomes a lot. So a lot of the times people don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with where they're going to keep it safe. Like my private keys are in a safe. Even my friend messaged me the other day and because he went and actually put his private keys in the same safe and he goes, is it laminated? And I was like, no. And he goes, go and get your private keys and laminate them because the vault told me that there is a 5% chance that they could get flooded because they're like next to the Brisbane River. So now I've actually got to go, and I know that I'm supposed to laminate them, but I just was lazy and I didn't. So now I got to go to the vault, get my private keys, go and laminate them, and take them back to the vault. All right. So a lot of people don't want to do that, so they will put money and they'll leave it on an exchange. Now, a lot of the times there's a lot of safe exchanges and we use a lot of safe exchanges. Now, after situations like FTX, anybody hear of FTX? So FTX was a big exchange, okay, that basically got shut down. And so I think that's put a lot of limelight on people understanding. But anybody that had money in FTX, anybody that had money in Mt. Gox, any people that had money in any of these exchanges that went under, it's the same with the banks, though. We hear about these banks, was it Wells Fargo in America that went under? You hear about these things that happen in like Cyprus and these countries. So it's not just cryptocurrency exchanges. It's any centralized entity. If you are leaving your assets on there and something happens to them, you could lose all of your assets. So many exchanges, just like Bybit, who is one of our referral partners, so we're using them as one of our examples. They have something called proof of reserves. Now, proof of reserves is meant to show you that they're actually storing your assets safely, and we won't unpack it too much tonight, but they'll call it like 1 for 1, so that for every asset that you have, they have that backed up in cold storage. So you can learn a little bit more about proof of reserves with the link that we have shared here when we share the links. But very, very important And also, just because it's a website that says, because FTX had the same thing, it said, oh, look, we have this proof of reserve. You want to actually go and do your homework and you want to figure out, okay, how are they actually validating that? Are they actually putting this data onto the blockchain, or is it just numbers on a screen? Okay, so it's very, very important that you do your homework on your exchange that you're using. And if they have proof of reserves, how are they proving to you that they have those reserves? Another one is not using 2FA. I think 2FA has become really quite popular now. No worries, Jesse. We'll see you soon. So 2FA is quite popular. If you don't have it, not just on your social accounts, you should have it on every layer, whether that be your banks, your social media. It's just an extra way of protecting yourself. A lot of the times, I think I've got on to the next slide, the different types of 2FAs. Most exchanges, it's actually mildly annoying, but I also appreciate it when I am trying to pay or transfer money from some of my centralized exchanges that I use. They make you go through multiple steps. So like you're like, I want to send, then it makes you put in the 2FA code, and then it makes you go to your email, and then it makes you click the email. And so it makes you go through all of these steps, which is mildly annoying, but it's a safety measure to make sure that somebody hasn't gotten into your phone. We're going to talk about SIM hacking in just a moment. So I highly recommend, if you don't have it, on all of your accounts, banking, social, crypto, please make sure that you are implementing 2FA. All right, now I know that we have a course, we're talking about cryptocurrency trading, but this is one of the mistakes that beginners make, okay? So they learn about cryptocurrency and they go down the rabbit hole and they want to get rich quick, and they just start investing a whole bunch of money in cryptocurrency and trading, and then they end up losing it all. So just take your time to learn, okay? Just like any other investment, whether it's stocks or real estate or anything, you got to take the time, you got to develop the skill to be able to master it. Ask Renee. She's been trying to master the skill for years before she kind of got to the stage where she is now. So I generally recommend, I'm a hodler, I dollar cost average. I'm not a crypto trader. I tried to be a Forex trader. I tried trading crypto. It's just not for me. But there's some people that make very good money from it. So I do recommend that you try with your demo account before you go and start playing with real money. But a lot of the times in the beginning, people just, you got to remember all of these influencers that are trying to get you to trade crypto. It's because that's how they make money, okay? It's not because that they're trying to help you make money. So just be careful with it. Take the time, learn the skills, and invest in your education, which all of you are doing here. Turn up to the sessions with Renee. Ask her questions. I see lots of you putting in your charts and all that. That's fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Invest in your education. Really, there is no get rich quick or easy money. Sometimes people get, I call it the crypto lottery. They get lucky, they make a quick buck. Same if you go to the casino, okay? So you just got to be really, really careful, obtain knowledge, invest in yourself. It's one of the things, if you invest in yourself, you're investing in your future. So just take the time. And in my opinion, education is an investment that will last. Even sometimes if you don't implement it right away, and you're like, oh, I just spent all that time learning that, and, it hasn't provided me any ROI yet. I promise you, a couple of years from now, you'll be like, oh, now that skill set is coming into play. All right. That is the top mistakes that beginners make. Now, before we go into online security, I just want to see if I saw some of these questions. I'm not sure if they're just comments. I think they're mostly just comments. Is Thursday's event being recorded? No worries. So it's Mondays and Wednesdays for us, Roseanne. I'm not sure where you're based, but I'm assuming you're somewhere where, but every session is recorded and it is shared into the platform. Jesse, I think you've left. If you haven't already accessed the platform, there's a QR code that you can join at the very beginning of the slides. All right, I think those were all of the questions. Thursdays, all things blockchain event. Oh, yes, 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 that one. Yes, the AMA, that one is definitely recorded. And then we share that through all things blockchain. We share that on our YouTube channel, all of those recordings, but I can pop them in the Education Hub as well as we're starting to build that out. But yes, all sessions are recorded. All right, online security. So this is not specific to Web3. This is just in general different ways that you can protect yourself, okay? So some of the most popular ways that hackers get to you: malware, viruses, spyware, and keyloggers. Now this really kind of comes down to, oh, I feel like, sorry, I keep going the wrong way on my slides. Phishing emails, so we already talked about those. SMS or phone attacks. Insecure networks, we'll talk about that a little bit. And then SIM swapping, which was a very popular form of hacking a while back, but I don't seem to hear about it too much. I think maybe the telecom community, companies and people have got a little bit more savvy on it, but definitely something that you should be aware of. So let's unpack it in social engineering, which we've talked about a little bit already. All right. Strong passwords. How many people here actually use a password manager? I've got a few. Yes, that's good. Very good. All right. All of you. Very good. If you're watching this recording and you're not using a password, Michael, if you're not using a password manager, I highly recommend that you do. Because I would say, unless you're one of those people with like a photographic memory, it's very hard to have multiple passwords that are all different, that are very strong. And that's what these password managers allow you to do. So I personally recommend that you use one, and you have one master password. Now for me, my master password is like a really long sentence, and I have ingrained it into my brain. Even the other day when I was down in the Gold Coast with my friend Ben, who's like been a software engineer for many, many years, and I was putting in my password, he was proud of me for how long it was. And I was like, I have created a sentence, and then I can't forget that sentence. And then I have capital letters in that sentence. But it's something that is like, I don't have it written down on a piece of paper. I really wish my seed phrases could be like that. um, but I use it and I have it only in my head. There's nowhere that my master password is. Because if anybody, it's kind of like your private keys of your crypto. If anybody can get into your password manager and you've got all of your passwords there to all of your accounts, then you know, it's a honeypot for the hackers. So these password managers basically create all of these really complex passwords to kind of help keep your accounts safe. So there are some popular ones that most people use. LastPass, which I personally was using before. OnePass, which I have not personally used. And then now I'm using Keeper Audit. And that is because I had a few people to tell me get away from LastPass. It had a few security breaches. And then it was just being really buggy, and I had all these issues. Every time I was trying to set my master password, it wouldn't reset it, and then I had to revert it, and I was like, I'm out of here. So it was actually a really easy process for me to transfer all of my password from LastPass over into Keeper. Out of curiosity, I'm just wondering, who does everybody else use? I see a few yeses in here, so I'm just curious as to what password managers people are using. So they will often, this is just a screenshot from, my personal account telling me it will give you a security audit. It has opportunity for breach watch. It will tell you if you've got multiple passwords. Yes, see, I was having problems too with LastPass. So I recently, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was that every time I reset my master password, I was confident. Like, I wrote it down, I re-entered it, and it was like locking me out, and I like nearly had a freak out attack, and then I like reverted it, and then I tried again, and then I was just like, nah, this is just getting too buggy for me for something that is this important. So yeah, so they basically allow you this vault to secure all of your passwords, and keep an audit out, and breach watch and everything. So I highly recommend, if you're not using one already, that you do. All right, 2FA. We've already talked about 2FA, so I'm not going to hone on it too much, but there's different ways. So there's SMS 2FA, which is my least preferred. Phone app, which is the one that I use the most, and I use Google Authenticator, sometimes Microsoft Authenticator, depending on what platform it is, or a hardware device. I have not upgraded my 2FA to a hardware device. I'm interested. Yes, that is the one. I was just trying to think of the name to see if anyone uses a hardware device in terms of a 2FA. I personally just use my phone apps, and then a lot of the time it will be, yes, that's another one, YubiKey, that I will have like two 2FAs, so they need like a SIM and the mobile app. So sometimes you'll get a message like this, you'll get an SMS, and it will ask you to enter in the code. And depending on what type of 2FA systems that you have on there. And so we're going to talk about SIM swapping in a moment. You've got to be very careful. If all of your 2FAs are with SIMs, then if you get a SIM swap and they can access basically your accounts, then they can get all of those codes, and they can change everything. So after I heard about SIM swapping, I tried to reduce the amount of SMS 2FAs that I can have. I would much prefer it to be the app on my phone. And we'll talk about SIM swapping in a moment. But if for whatever reason, if somebody were to SIM swap me, if they don't have my phone, then they don't have my Google Authenticator, so they can't get the codes. This is just Microsoft. This is another option. Now, you'll see here the reason why I've got this screenshot. I don't do this, but you should. But you see there how it has a secret key. Funny. We talk about private keys, secret keys. As I told you, cryptography is nothing new. But these keys, if you keep them secure and you were to lose your device, you would be able to import that authenticator onto your new phone. So in a perfect world, you should be backing up your secret keys to all of your 2FAs. Now, out of curiosity, who does that? Or when you're in the moment and you're setting up the 2FA and it asks you to back it up or copy it? No, we don't. So I think that's probably, a good practice maybe to get into, but something I don't think most people do. Yeah, there you go. I knew I had a photo in here. So YubiKey is one of them. I personally have never. Does anybody use a hardware device for their 2FA? I've got some no's. Um, I think it's definitely Martin. Did you say yes? Do you have a YubiKey? I'm be interested to see. Oh no, okay, good. Because I was gonna ask. I've always kind of wondered, like, does that mean that every time, so like if you have your hardware wallet with a ledger, which we haven't dived into yet, and if you don't know, that's fine. We'll talk about it. But like every time you want to transfer cryptocurrency, with your ledger, you have to plug it in, right? And then you have to log in. You have to put in your passwords, your 2FAs, and then you can transfer the cryptocurrency. I could just find that mildly annoying that every time I needed to do 2FA that I needed to plug in a hardware device rather than just look up a code on my phone. But I guess if you have really important things that you're trying to secure, I would go that next level and implement a hardware device so that you can protect your assets. Phishing, so we talked about this a little bit already, so I won't go into too much detail and repeat myself here. But generally, there'll be emails or SMSs where they're trying to get you to click on links. A lot of the times, if you click on that link, it's installing a virus, or they're trying to drain your wallet, depending on kind of what scenario it is. So, what can you do to protect yourself? Always be cautious, as I mentioned. Check those URLs. Contact the company. Like, I'll never generally reply to an email. I'll just contact the bank or I'll contact the phone company directly, and not click on any links or respond. Now, I have been in the moment before, like I told you when I was at Consensus Toronto, and I like clicked on it and clicked on it, and then afterwards it didn't work, and I was so grateful that I was in a conversation. I wasn't trying too hard, because then an hour later I found out that it was a scam. So we sometimes we're all busy and we're doing too many things, but just in best practice, just don't click or respond, contact them. Never enter your personal information via email or any of those kind of pop-up screens. 90% of the times, companies are not going to send you an email asking you to put in your personal information. So just be vigilant, okay? And if you're ever unsure, as I mentioned, just contact the company directly. Never kind of go through any links on your email. A lot of the times they'll keep the URL, it will look so close, but there'll just be one letter that's different or one little dot, and you think that it's a real URL, but it's not. It's a fake website or a fake platform. So here's an example of one. This was a while ago when the ledger, I still get these in my inbox all the time. But that's a really bad one. Like ledger dash support. I don't even know. Like if you look at that, you probably would be like, okay, like how do people fall for that? But what they might do is not look at the URL. They'll see this email and they're like, oh my, I want to save my assets. And then they hit update now, and then they've downloaded a virus or they've done something. There's a platform called I have been Pewed. So you can go and scan that and put in your email address, and it will tell you if that email address has been involved in any breaches. So it's a fun little exercise to go and do. When I put in my old email address, it's been, I don't know if I have it actually on the next screen. Yes. Okay. So this is a screenshot from one of my old email addresses that I don't actively, like I still have it, but I don't really actively use it. But This is my Fitness Pal, Canva, who else? Genius U, Ledger. So my email was in a breach of all of these companies. So, but then you see my other email that I had put, which was, I still not even using that email anymore, but that was previously my first little education side project was She's Blockchain Savvy, and you can see that it hadn't been compromised. So if you haven't already, I recommend that you go and take your email and go and put it into these platforms and figure out, have you been a part of a data breach? And if you have, is there any concern? What information did they get? And how can you protect yourself? Social engineering. We talked about this one a little bit when we went through the mistakes that beginners make. Okay, so this is where they try to get enough information and basically essentially pretend to be you. Okay, so what can you do? Reduce the amount of information that you make public on social media. If you have your birth date on social media or your phone number, I highly recommend that you remove it or you change it. Less is better when it comes to social media. Don't give any information by SMS or phone until you can actually verify their identity. I think we'll talk about SIM swaps next. And if you are getting rid of important information, make sure that you use a shredder or you find some sort of way. It's common that people will go through rubbish bins and they will, gather that information. So 2 quick little stories. I was Facebook hacked. It was back in 2021. How did they do it? After a week of stress, because at that time I was managing 3 different Facebook business accounts, and I had just started building my own She's Blockchain Savvy, and I was locked out of my Facebook. I couldn't access my business account. I couldn't access any of the ad accounts. And it took me, over a week to figure out how they did it. But what they did was that they social engineered me. I had an old domain that I had allowed to lapse, and they found out that domain. And guess what? That domain was my backup email address. So they went and purchased the domain and then created the email account so that they could then reset my password of my Facebook and log me out. So it took me a while to figure out how they did it. Facebook wasn't helping. Nobody was contacting me. When I eventually figured it out, what they had done and how they had accessed, had basically locked me out of my account, I contacted the domain company that I had purchased the domain from previously and said to them, I was like, hey, listen, I don't know what you can do here, but I'm letting you know whoever has purchased this domain, in the last week is actually a hacker, and they've hacked into my accounts and everything. But then what the hackers ended up doing is they ended up releasing. So when you buy a domain, I think you can have like 3 days to let it go. And then they let go of the domain. And then I had to repurchase the domain so that I could create the email account so that I could get access back to my Facebook account. Now, what they were trying to do is just run scam ads. So they got 3 days running ads, and it was like ads to these some sort of Asian marketplace to buy clothes or something, and they racked up thousands of dollars of ads. Luckily, we didn't have to pay for it because Facebook, we ended up solving it all. But my point is an old domain that I allowed elapsed, which was my backup email, and they social engineered me enough to figure that out. So just be careful. So After that, I was like, how do you secure your Facebook account? Okay, there's different things that you can do. One, have 2FA on if you don't. And this can apply to any account. This slide says Facebook. It could be your LinkedIn. It could be your Twitter. It could be anything, whatever social media platform that you're using. Make sure that you turn on your alerts for unrecognized logins and you automatically get a notification. Um, Choose trusted contacts. You can, I can't remember because it's been so many years now and I don't really use Facebook anymore. Surprise, surprise. But you can have like trusted contacts in there. And I think you can even like assign them like somebody so that if you get locked out of their account, they can help you get access. They also have recovery codes in there. If you go into your settings and go into your like back office, you can, there's some recovery codes. So the same thing that if you lose access to your account, you should be able to import it. And then add a backup email, but make sure that backup email is not an old elapsed domain where people could social engineer you and go and hack. So I've put your Facebook account, but I'm actually probably going to change this to be your social media accounts, because a lot of them will all have these safety features in there. But a lot of the times, if somebody wants to hack you, they're going to be kind of going through and social engineering you through your social media platforms. Same thing, secure your email. So using a very strong password, using a password manager, install 2FA. Okay, I personally don't like to use my phone number. That's because of SIM swapping, which we'll get to in a moment. Add in a backup email. Okay, so then in case you lose access, I actually lost access to my Microsoft email. It was really, really annoying because they clearly had a bug, but the 2FA wasn't working. And every time I was like putting it in, so I was locked out of my account for a whole month and being able to access my email. Because I don't think I had a backup email on that account. So always very important that you have that. Make sure you review your security notifications and that they're on, and download backup codes if available. So a lot of these emails, social media accounts and whatnot, you don't actually realize that if you go and do your homework, and now we've got ChatGPT, I was just going to say, ChatGPT, how do I secure my Microsoft account? Or how do I secure, and it'll probably give you a whole bunch of steps. And if you go into the back settings, there's most likely going to be some codes that if you were to lose access that you could basically import it back, or if you lost the password, for example. SIM swapping. I've talked about SIM swapping. Has anybody heard of a SIM swapping hack before? Okay, mostly no's. That's good. I learned after the Ledger hack to keep a separate email for my hard wallet. Yes, that is very good. So SIM swapping is where the hacker will social engineer you, that they'll get enough information that they will ring your, I'm just going to say, so this is me saying remove your phone to FA if possible, and add a pin to your network provider. So after I found out about SIM swapping, I called Optus and I added a pin so nobody can change the SIM without that pin. Okay, and so what does that mean? So that means that if somebody social engineered you enough, now it's very common, people lose their phones. And if they lose their phone, the SIM is inside there, which means that they don't have the SIM as your phone number, right? So if you say, hey, I've got a new phone, I just need to transfer my SIM, which is essentially your phone number, to my new phone. Can you help me? So the hackers will pretend to be you. They've got enough information because they've social engineered that they'll ring up your phone company and say what I've just said, and they will get them to basically transfer your phone number to their new SIM. And what does that mean if all of your 2FAs are SMS? That means that when they go to log into your bank account or your social accounts or your cryptocurrency accounts, if they hit forgot password or lost password, and then your SMS is your 2FA backup, but they have swapped your SIM, then they can basically get access to all of your accounts. There was a really big case in America. I can't remember. I think it was millions of dollars that a guy lost because the telecommunications company basically fell for the scam with the hackers and gave the hackers basically transferred the phone number over to the hackers, and then they were able to log into his account and like transfer millions of dollars of crypto. I haven't heard of it as much recently in the last few years because I think, like most scams, that they kind of this still happens. A friend of mine had her ah tax completed using this method recently. Interesting. But I would wonder what's the scam with the tax completed. Oh, they got her tax return? Is that what happened? I'm guessing. Ah, okay. Yeah, see? So you gotta be careful. Really be careful out there. I rang up as soon as I rang up Optus, I put a pin on there. So if anybody ever phones up that they need to know that pin, to be able to, and I made a note on my account. So it's an extra precaution that you can do. You can phone up your telecommunications company and be like, hey, what safety precautions do you have for SIM swapping? What can I put on my account to protect myself? Because as Amy shown, it's not just in cryptocurrency, and people are doing it with tax. So really important one. I think this is just an example. So this was like Optus. I think these like are screenshots from a while ago that I have that I've just kind of kept. But they'll send you like a link pretending to be your mobile provider, trying to get you to put in your personal information, putting in your private accounts and whatnot. So as always, although you can see here it says Optus_info, and then it's trying to get you to click. Now, for most people, now that you're educated, I look at that and I'm like, instant scam, Optus_info, and then it's got all these weird HC-E whatever. So for me, I just ignore them. Like I don't even click on them, but for some people they may, okay? And they may become a victim of a scam. So just don't click the link. Phone your phone provider, phone your bank, make sure it's really them, okay? And then also report it if possible. I keep going the wrong way, folks. Oh, that was the last thing. Your phone provider will never ask you for your personal information via SMS or email. Nowadays, they even have more safety precautions that over the phone.
What is a VPN and what can you do with it?
Sorry, I forgot that these autoplay. So a VPN, who uses a VPN? Got a few yeses, yeah. I use it sometimes. I'm like you, Roseanne. I use it sometimes. I use it when I'm traveling. I use it if I'm in certain places. But like generally, when I'm at home, I'm not trying to, decrypt where I am or what I'm trying to do. But there are certain times where a VPN does come into play. And we've got this quick, I think it's like a 1-minute video that's going to explain a VPN better than me. I have no affiliation with this company, by the
What can
way.
you do with it? A VPN is a power tool for your devices that enhances the internet. With it, you can do three really cool things. One, watch movies and TV from any of your devices, fast and securely. Two, you can use parts of the internet that are blocked in certain countries. Three, you can keep your internet traffic private even when you're on an unsecured public network. So what is VPN? And how does it do all of that? VPN means Virtual Private Network. ExpressVPN's network has servers in more than 100 locations around the world. Once you have an account, you can connect to the internet through any of these locations. The connection is private, so your movies will stream fast, free from traveling and buffering. Once you're connected, all your internet traffic is encapsulated in a tunnel, allowing it to pass through government filters. Inside that tunnel, your data is encrypted. No one can see it but you and the people you send it to, not even your internet service provider. In other words, VPN makes the internet how it should be: free, open, and private. Using a VPN isn't complicated. In fact, it's as easy as downloading an app for your computer or mobile device. You'll wonder how you ever use the internet without it.
So most people probably will use VPNs for some of the use cases that they said. Okay, you want to access content in different countries, or if you're geo-blocked. For example, one of the girls, one of my interns that's with me, she wasn't able to access the Bybit platform. And she goes, "Oh, the link's not working. It's not working." I'm like, "Yeah, it's working for me. I don't know." And then we realized that she was being geo-blocked. If you don't know what that means that certain providers, you know, all of the big exchanges, whether it be Binance or Bybit or Coinbase or Kraken or any of them, they have certain jurisdictions that they can not service. And so then they have to geo-block people from being able to access that product or service. And so how they know where you're based or where the traffic is coming from is from your IP address. And so the VPN basically just, stops that from happening. Now, I'm not an expert in VPNs and the security features on them, but at a high level, if you're interacting with a lot of different types of cryptocurrency platforms and you don't have a VPN, then that information can be made public, and so the hackers could know, okay, well, what this person is visiting Bybit on a regular basis. They must have a Bybit account. Okay, let's see how we can social engineer their account. So it's more about them knowing the different platforms and different accounts that your IP address is interacting with, in terms of keeping it safe and protected. Secure your mobile device. So making sure that you're updating the latest updates. I'm terrible for that. Okay. You want to make sure that you are using a lock pin or passwords or even biometrics to kind of keep your mobile safe, and make sure that you're regularly reviewing apps and uninstall any kind of unused crypto apps or financial apps that you're not using. I think that we all sometimes kind of get a little bit complacent, with our phones. But it is, quite important that we have good hygiene on how we're keeping things safe and kind of updated, because those updates that applications push out, it's a lot of the time to fix buggers. I can't speak tonight. Bugs or different types of vulnerabilities within the software. So if we are not updating, our applications on our phone or our computers, we could be leaving ourselves vulnerable to different types of security breaches. Browser and extension hygiene. So especially with Web3 and dApps, Be very, very, very careful that you're only installing, vetted extensions that that you're using. Disable when you're not using, disabled unused ones monthly. I guess that's I put in monthly, but if you're just not using them, you should disable them and manage hot wallet extensions. I think I've got a photo to show you what I mean. So your say your Trust wallet or your MetaMask or your Bybit, whatever wallet that you're using in your browser extension, if you're not using it, I think I've got these photos here. Yeah. So you see the one on the right there with the MetaMask. So I've got MetaMask, Phantom, Trust Wallet, and Polkadot. And you can see there how I have turned off MetaMask, Phantom, and Polkadot. And you can see how I have Trust Wallet on. And you can kind of see it to the left there. So that essentially means that it's like off. It's not connected to the internet. So it's just an extra safety precaution that you can have. And I only turn on the extension when I'm using it, especially when it comes to my Web3 wallets. Does anybody else do this? Does anybody else manage their extensions and turn off any hot wallets that they're using? If not, I highly recommend that you do that. Yes. It's not really logging off. It's basically you're just turning off it's just like you can't access it. It's not connected. I don't know where my doing that. All right, so let's talk about some top safety tips. Let's summarize it. Use a strong password if you're not already using biometrics, 2FA when you can, all right? Making sure that you're keeping all of your crypto tools tidy. Some people have a dedicated web browser, disable your hot wallets. Some people even have a separate computer, a separate phone for their cryptocurrency. Making sure that you're using cold storage. We're going to talk more about that next week. We have not talked about multi-sigs yet, so I'm not going to expect you to understand what those are, but that is essentially that you have to have multiple people signing in order to be able to transfer funds. This is what a lot of large businesses, they'll use multi-sigs. We'll talk about that in a future lesson. Verify every transaction, making sure that you're kind of going in and doing audits. Small test transactions, always, if you're just sending a bit of money, like just send $1 first and then do a larger transaction. Always backing up your private keys, okay? Whether that be your crypto private keys or your codes, always making sure that you have those up and that they are stored in a safe place. Don't put them up in your cloud storage. And stay informed. Just be alert, be vigilant. You're here, you're investing. Just be very careful and just know that there's scams out there left, right, and center. All right, well, that is it from me today in terms of today's lesson. I hope that you got some value. You learned some tips and tricks on how you're going to stay safe if you're new to the crypto industry, how you're going to avoid some of those mistakes that beginners make. Next week, we're going to start diving into how do you actually buy crypto if you haven't already? How are you keeping it safe? We're going to talk about the differences between all of the wallets. We covered some of that stuff today, but we're going to dive it a little bit deeper and some tips and tricks for you to get out there and play safely if you want to get into the world of investing in cryptocurrency. As always, just a little reminder, I know Dee's actually over on holiday. She told me she's gone. She was one of the first ones to fill out the Bybit form, where if you do sign up using our referral code, we will send you 5 USDC so that you can actually go and to see how easy it is to spend, stable coins on your Bybit card. You can have it in your wallet. You can get the hard card. I've got both. And then if you want to go even one step further, if you deposit 100 USDT, Bybit will give you $20. So just a reminder on that one. Now, your practical activity is for you to go and do a little security audit. Okay. Are you using 2FA? Do you have a password manager? Are you keeping your eyes and ears out? Do you understand how to spot, what a phishing email or text is? And what about your browser extension? Is there anything that you can do to clean that up and keep it a little bit more safe? So you've got your activities. I'll be doing a post right after this call that will have all of the links to your practical activity. I'll have the link to your lessons. Also, we'll share the recording for you tomorrow. So we put all of that inside of the education platform so that you have easy access to it. We'll also put your quiz in there as well. So just a reminder, the quizzes are just a way for you to test your knowledge. You will then get an email with the answers so that you can kind of compare and see how you've done. They're not like the quizzes that you would like we would have when they're inside of the platform where they like kind of self-correct or self-mark. But we do send you an email with all of the answers so that you can see those and kind of compare to what you had input. And then you can also access the practical activity so that you can go and do a little security audit on your online security. All right, well, that is it from me today in terms of lessons. Now I'm going to open it up to some Q&A. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that we want to discuss? Everyone's gone quiet. Awesome, perfect, great. Any thoughts on passkeys? You know what? I actually haven't dived into that, and I keep seeing them pop up and create your passkeys, and I don't know enough about it, and I've just been so busy with everything, launching the education platform, organizing events. I have not gone down the rabbit hole of really understanding them. So I don't have any thoughts. My only thought is that I need to learn about them and understand how they work, and what is the benefit. But thanks again, everyone. Keep engaging, keep learning, and Wednesday night, Renee will be here teaching you the basics of crypto trading. Otherwise, happy learning, and I will see you on Monday. What's your preference on a hardware, Trezor or Ledger? I actually have one of each. I don't think I really have a preference. I think in terms of using, because Ledger was my first one, I think I'm just more comfortable with using Ledger, and I like the Ledger Live. I mitigated my risk by splitting my assets across different hardware devices, just like I do. I have different exchanges, just as a mitigation strategy. But the one time that I did plug in my Trezor, I didn't like it. I still don't even actually know. It's not like on my desktop. I can actually go and log into my Ledger Live right now, and I can see how much cryptocurrency I have. Now, obviously, I can't transfer anything, but that doesn't seem to be the case with Trezor. When I plugged it in, I had to like go and like access the interface. So if I had to pick, I would say Ledger, but I have both to diversify my or mitigate my risk, sorry. All right, thank you, Martin. Thank you, everyone. Roseanne, Amy, Nick, Michael, Aaron, all of you, Gabby, thank you so much. for tuning in, and I hope that you all learned something and enjoy the rest of your week. And I will see you next week.